So before we start, like again, a quick introduction, right, about me, and then I'll ask Himanshu to introduce himself. So I'm Vikrant. I have been a QA for around almost 16 years, out of which 12 years I have been with ThoughtWorks. And currently I am someone who is looking forward to be a QA coach and an agile coach. So yeah, that's about me. To go, Himanshu.
Hello everyone. This is Himanshu. I have been a QA for 11 years, and of which 6 years with ThoughtWorks. And over these years, I've worked across different types of projects, not just UI but backend and event streaming platforms, which has helped me a lot in developing my understanding for test strategy. And currently, like I'm mostly interested in product management, how that works, and some aspects of complexity, like how to deal with complexity in the projects that we work in.
Yeah, so we can start, right? So one of the questions, right, when we were also coming up with this presentation was, why do we really need to deconstruct a test strategy, right? It's already like we have a lot of examples, we have a lot of things built in, right? Why do you really want to deconstruct it, right? And one of the things that typically why do you deconstruct, right? When that comes into mind, there is a philosophy in design world or even in engineering world that when you break down built up things, first is you learn a lot about it, right? I think that's the first key criteria, right? Second is when you look at each and every separated part or separated component, you really understand importance of it, and you also understand how can that component be used in a different way, right? And I think most of us would have figured it out at some point in time, right? Like let's take an example. Where is this bike, right? When you would deconstruct a bike or a cycle, right, you will see different components, right? And what would be those different components, right? So you will have a saddle, right, where you sit. You will have a handlebar where you navigate the bicycle. You will have spokes in the wheel, right? Then you will have this body, right, which holds your entire bike together. You would have chain, you would have crank, you would have pedals, right? Then for tires, you will have bearings, right? So there are a lot of different components involved in a bike, right? But if you go to the crux of it, right, if you see the heart of it is the crank and the gear in the back wheel, right, which propels your entire bicycle ahead, right? But have you really seen, right, that people who develop just focus on that, right? Over the time when the bike evolves, you would have seen that people have changed the way the handle looks, right? uh, People have changed even the way the tires look, right? Like there are now slimmer tires with a bicycle, right? Then there are thicker tires for MTBs, right? So there are different things, right? And the reason would be someone would have really thought about, right, like why do I need this component, how can I improve this, right? One of the examples is a bicycle with gears, right? Because someone really understood that whatever this what you can call it as back wheel gear was, if we change its dimensions, the feel of driving a bicycle changes, right? And that's why you have multiple gears in those way, right? So if you look at bicycle in general, right, there are a lot of components involved and each one has their own importance, right? And over the time each of this component has evolved and made the bicycles better, right? If you look at now, and if you look at the bicycles that were there like 15 years or 20 years back, current bikes are a lot better, right? And even maybe within like last 3 or 4 years, you would have seen a lot of evolution of bicycle, right? So taking that as a cue, right, like deconstructing something really helps us understand better. Let's look at the test strategy. So usually, right, at least what I have done, I can share that, right? I think as Aman shared, right, like when someone asks you to come up with test strategy, you do two or three things, right? You either go back to your seniors, right, or you do a Google, right? or you search for a template online and try to put things that you think are relevant in that sheet or in that document, right? One of the things that I have faced is when I copied a test strategy from Google, there was something mentioned in it around I think accessibility testing, which was not totally relevant to my project, right? And when I presented it, they asked me, okay, why do you need it? And this this really pushed me into thinking, right? Going forward, I should really think through, right? I should not copy a test strategy, right? I should really think through what all components actually are needed when I'm creating test strategy, right? But even before we come to test strategy, right, I think there is something really important question that usually we should ask ourselves, right? Like why do we really need a test strategy, right? So yeah, Himanshu will take us through the journey.
Yes. And this is one thing, right, that I've never seen, like hardly seen people talk about. It's the why. Like, why do we even need a test strategy? When you say that I'm building a test strategy, the test strategy, it is supposed to help us achieve some goal. There is some outcome which will come out of it. Maybe there is a vision with, and to achieve that, we need to have some strategy, right? And this concept, right, of why is what Simon mentions in his book. It's called Start with Why. It's like he explains how all the great products that have been built always start with the why. They always explain why, what they believe in, what is their vision of this world, and then they talk about the how part on how they plan to achieve it, and then eventually they talk about what, which is the outcome, maybe a product. I think the most famous example would be of Apple, where how Steve Jobs gave the entire organization a vision to think differently, to challenge the status quo, to build something that has never been done. And that was the principle, that was the vision that Apple had. And with that vision, they came up with their own line of products, which were then ultimately the what, which was sold to people. And having this vision is super critical, right? Because it helps you align with different stakeholders. It is how you make everyone believe in what you're doing, right? And in product management world, right, this translates to this golden circle that Simon talks about of why, how, and what. It translates to vision. The why is the vision, the core of your idea on why we are doing this. How is the strategy? What is the path that I plan to take to get there? And then what eventually would be the tactics. So without understanding this vision, building a strategy, it can be very difficult, and it might even lead to a situation where it's not even meaningful. So for example, right, when this whole idea of this talk came up, and Vikrant and I think we spent the most time discussing why we are doing this talk. And our vision for this, having a deconstructed test strategy, was that we believe that currently the test strategy that we have, the templates that we use, are very verbose, and they have too much irrelevant information, which might not be even useful, right? And then when you deconstruct it, and what we wanted to do was use our experience of working in different types of projects. That was our strategy, right? To have all our experiences combined into create some sort of a simplified view or a deconstructed view of the test strategy, which is our what. And this is what we this is how we started putting ideas together for this. For this talk. And it is super critical, because if we didn't understand the why we are doing this, we could have created a deconstructed test strategy, but it would be still verbose. All the components individually, when you look at it, they might still be too confusing. Right? And hence, understanding this why is super important. As is in this proverb, right? Like it calls out, like if you do some action but you don't have a vision of where you are going, right, that can be very nightmarish for you. And you may start a project, build a test strategy without having any vision, or without understanding the vision of the product, right? And you build a test strategy, and eventually you may end up in a situation where the testing has now sort of become a bottleneck. The business stakeholders or the technical stakeholders, they're calling out that the testing that we are doing is not helping at all. And maybe it is because we didn't understand the vision, and now we are at a crossroads with the business vision and the vision of quality that we have as a test strategy. Okay. So first, the most important thing is to understand the vision, right? And understanding the vision is super critical now, because if you think what we do now, like we're building products for a very complex world, there is no sure shot winning criteria. If you look at any of the product that is being built, most of them are into experimentation mode. Build quickly, deploy, and then validate the hypothesis, right? There is no guaranteed way that we build a product and it will succeed. So the products are being built for a complex world. And if for such products, right, which plan to move at a faster pace, that can be one type of products, right? You then, if the testing strategy is too much inclined on doing a lot of exhausting testing, right, to make sure there are no bugs in production, then for those products, the testing might become a bottleneck rather than being an enabler. And that is something that we don't want, right? Because that is when you hear questions like manual testing is dead, QA is not needed anymore, right? Because the test strategy was somehow not aligned to the product that was being built. And on the other end of on the other spectrum, you might have products which actually need a lot of testing beforehand. They're like mission critical products. But there, if you rely too much on automation and not enough on exploratory testing or much more detailed testing, then those testing might not be useful, right? Then there may be questions around the understanding of quality by the QAs. Right? So then again, right, in all of these cases, if the strategy is not aligned to the vision of the product, then you might see the testing becoming a bottleneck. And hence, we should always start with the vision and then define strategy. And understanding this vision also enables strategy pivots whenever necessary. So because whenever we define a product vision or whenever we define a vision and then we define a strategy, it's at very early stages of the product, right? And eventually when you start executing things, you may run into some blockers where you realize that whatever my original plan was, it is not working. And then you might need to pivot, right? But the pivot should again be then driven by your vision. Like what is it that I ultimately want to achieve? If UI testing is not working out, but my vision was having a faster delivery to market or putting in controls that enable faster delivery to market, then I would rather switch to API testing and not move entirely to automation or to manual testing. Right? So hence, having understanding of this vision really enables strategy pivots, or whenever you are revisiting your strategy, which path to now choose, right? That will further your vision. And to understand the vision, like for your product, what you can try doing is like have a discussion with your stakeholders, very focused discussion with them on what their vision of the product is, what they plan to achieve, who is this product being built for, right? Well, maybe we are building this product for people having low bandwidth, and hence we are using GraphQL as our tech. So in that case, doing a mobile testing for low bandwidth and low configuration mobile would be part of my test strategy. Right. So having these focused stakeholder conversations to understand the product vision, do trade-offs, sliders exercises you can do with them. What would they rather do? Have more experimentation in production, or have like zero defect sort of build deployed to production? Reading through the elevator pitches, vision and mission statements, all of these can help you understand the vision of the product or the vision of the business, and then you can use that to then define your strategy. For example, if you look at Google's mission statement, right, or vision, and it is very ambitious, right, to provide or organize and then provide access to the world's information in one click. And if this is vision, then my testing strategy would include some components that help further this vision. Rather than doing too much testing in the development cycle, I would rather prefer doing testing in production. Having performance testing in the pipeline would be one of my key criteria. More and more of my functional tests would be automated so that I can deploy to production quickly and then get actual feedback when users try to interact with the application. Right. So in this way, if I understand the vision, whatever strategy I create, first of all, it will only enable a smoother product development. And then secondly, if I understand vision, then I can also change my strategy as and when needed, right? Because I'll always know which direction I want to go in. So let's look at this with the help of a case study.
Yeah. So quickly, I'll just briefly talk about the case study that we are considering, right? Like the client we have is the biggest airline in the world. one of the biggest. It currently has a working desktop website. Its vision, right, or its aim is to increase the mobile booking share, right? Like currently it's mostly from desktop websites or the agents that they have, right? But they want to increase the mobile booking share based on whatever survey they did, right? That people are nowadays using more mobiles for booking and all, right? So the task that the team was assigned was to build a mobile web, Android application and an iPhone application, right? So after discussion with the client, the tech team came up with an approach where they wanted to combine embedded web views within the native screens and also few native screens for functionality which is not present on mobile web, right? Another assumptions or another thought that the team had is currently we don't really need our own mobile APIs, but we will rely on the existing desktop APIs that are being used, right? The team composition is like we have all the roles, right? Like we have a PM, we have BAs, we have QAs, and we have developers, right? Now the question would be, right, like why all these things are relevant, right? So what we will do is using this case study, we will look at each and every component of a test strategy that we think, right? And the components that we are looking at are at a high level, right? There might be smaller subsections into it, but we really didn't deep dive into them that much, right? So let's start with the first one, right? Application under test, right? Now, as you can see, there is architecture, right, which was built, right? As I mentioned, there are already APIs, right, which is core API, which is a desktop API, right? And then there is payments API, right? So this payments API will process all our payment, right? So why do I really need to understand the application under test, right? One is, as I think Aman was mentioning, right? We really need to understand our boundary of testing, right? Unless we don't really understand that, we might go in a wrong direction of testing, right? Like there would be a place where we really need to stop, but we are still progressing, right? So in our case, right, since this core API and payment API are already being used in desktop version, and whatever defects or whatever issues they have, they would already be known, and there won't be many major functional defects in this, right? So that's one part which we are not really going to test it explicitly, right? But does that mean I would not really report defects on that? No. It means like we will use it, but we will not explicitly test it, right? Another thing this diagram helped me understand was where are my integration points. Like one example is you see that I'll integrate with the payments API. I'll integrate with the core desktop API, right? So when I would test it, if I need any mocks, I can use them, right? I would really be very keen on availability of these APIs, right? So that's another thing, right? What else would it help, right? Like if you see, there are common HTML JavaScript components. There is this anti-corruption layer, which what again trims down the desktop core API's response into mobile things, right? So this diagram actually helps me understand what are the different moving components within my application, right? And which all layers or which all component I really need to test differently, right? Like for example, common HTML JavaScript. If I test it once, I am pretty much sure that it won't break on any other place, right? So maybe the testing approach for that would be different, right? But when it comes to native views, right, like for Android or iPhone, I might really have to test it in a different way, right? Because they are very much native to application, right? So the focus for Android would be people who know Android, right? iPhone would be people who know testing about iPhone, right? And my automation tool will also be picked based on that basis, right? So we can move ahead to the next component, right? Next component is testing types, right? Again, this is entirely dependent on your case study, right? Or whatever is the business case and what exactly is the application under test, right? So in our case, we will do functional testing, we will do cross functional testing because in mobile accessibility and usability are one of the key things, right? Core API's performance will also be a thing which we really need to test, because we'll be increasing load on that, right? Since it involves a lot of payments, security testing is one of the things that we will look at, right? And based on the discussion we have with our customer, we will add more things, right? Then in functional testing, we'll have our typical things, right? We'll do exploratory, we'll do unit testing, we'll do regression, right? One of the important thing is we will do device compatibility testing, right? Given it's mobile, the spectrum is huge, right? The resolutions are different, right? There is range of screen sizes which we really need to test on. So that also becomes really critical, right? If it would have been just a desktop application, maybe device compatibility would not have been that much of an issue, but browser compatibility would have come into play, right? Another thing, right? Since mobile would be the first thing that they would be launching, right? We really need to think about getting feedback from users, right? And we can have multiple ways of getting that feedback, right? It can be beta testing, it can be A/B testing. We can also do a user acceptance testing where we ask our stakeholders to really do the testing, right? So again, based on our discussion, we will pick up that strategy of how exactly we'll collect feedback from the users, right? Moving ahead, next is a test automation approach, right? So here, I think one of the things that Himanshu mentioned, right? Vision is really important, right? As in case of Google, right? When we were talking about, they really want to be faster to market, right? So they really want to do deployments really quick. So they can't really afford testing a lot of things in an exploratory way, right? So their focus is mainly on going with the automation, right? At any layer, right? Be it unit test, be it integration test, or be it end-to-end or UI test, right? Their focus is to automate as much as they can, right? Another thing which is really important is that the team should agree with whatever test automation approach we take, right? Typically what happens is developers, managers, or BAs, they are not really involved in your test strategy, right? But to have an effective test strategy, you really need a team agreement, right? For example, a team needs to agree that they will do unit tests, right? Developers really need to come up with that thought process that, okay, we will do unit testing, right? Developers will also need to help, say, with integration testing, right? They can talk to us like what are the different APIs involved, right? And as we looked at the ATDD session, right, our BAs or the business needs to be really involved in helping us understanding different scenarios, right? Moving ahead, based on this discussion, right, you will end up having multiple approaches, right? Do you do BDD? Do you do ATDD? Do you do none of these and you just do your typical testing, right? Like what approach you really need to pick up, right? And once we have that, right, but your approach also depends on, right, what tool you want to use, right? Do you use Selenium? Do you use Cypress? You want to use APM? You want to use, say, a commercial tool like Perfecto, right? Or you really want to use any other offerings, right? Like Browser Stack or anything. What do you want to use, right? Another thing would be like what all different testing types we are going to do, right? Like for example, one of the examples Himanshu mentioned, performance in a pipeline, right, which runs every day, right? Or how exactly our deployment strategy would be, right? Do we really deploy after every commit? Maybe that's one of the strategies. For example, Twitter or Facebook they use, right? Every commit of theirs goes as a production deployment, right? So what is our strategy, right? If that is our strategy, then maybe our automation needs to be more rigorous, our automation needs to cover more things, right? So that really depends on what we are going to do, right? So moving forward, I think around we will take a look at more components, right? You want to take this, Himanshu?
Yeah. So till now we talked about the application under test. So we understood the tech architecture. Then we understood the testing types, the different things that we'll do. Some of them might be manual, some of them might be automated. And then what is the automation that we're planning to do, at which level, at using what tools we'll do, right? So next component is the path to production. This is where you put everything together to present to your stakeholders what is the big picture, right? So this helps everyone visualize how every commit will reach from a developer's machine to production. So you lay out all the different things, all the different layers, quality controls, in place, and then you visualize it to help understand the flow of code, right? And it also helps understand any organizational constraints there might be. For example, if you're working for a banking application or banking organization, right, and you draw a path to production and do not put any approval process, so then your business stakeholders might call that out, that okay, you have said that we'll deploy to production, but then we need to get an approval from the security team. So then that becomes a part of your path to production. Similarly, it will help you call out any need for infrastructure. So you say that, okay, I'll definitely need 3 environments. I'll need an automation environment where I'll run all my automation without any external influence. I'll need a testing environment for my exploratory testing and my staging where some user testing can be done. So then all this infrastructure needs can be called out early. And then also you get, using this, you can define some release process. How will the release look like? What will be the versioning strategy? What will be deployment strategy? Who will be the key stakeholders that will be driving the release? Do we need a specific release management team? Right? How do we align all the different components? Like there are payments API and core APIs we can't talk about in the architecture. Then there is the web views, and then there are the apps, the native users. How do we combine everything? How do we say which version of which product is going to work, right? So all of this becomes part of your path to production. Next is ways of working. This is another component in your test strategy. And this is very key because till now, what we have talked about is the tools, the technologies, right? But this is more about your team. As we all understand, right, quality is a team responsibility. And then if all of your team is not aligned towards your vision of quality, right, and how you plan to achieve it, then there's a high chance, right, that strategy might not work out. So the ways of working is the component using which you can define the different roles that are in the team. What will be their responsibilities? What do you expect from them? What does the team should expect from each of them? Help everyone understand the principle of quality as a team responsibility. And using this, you can also define some sort of entry-exit criteria. As when I was talking about in a session, right? Like maybe having ATDD is one of my ways of working. And then my entry criteria would be, first we do a 3 amigos session before we start developing on any story. We do a 3 amigos session or a kickoff with the developer B and the QA. And then once the development is done, we do a test check on developer's machine to give some quick feedback. Right? So all these things can then be part of your ways of working. And then as a QA specialist, right, you can also talk about your role. How will you help the team? At which all point you will be involved? You'll be part of sprint planning meetings to drive some of the discussions around testability. You'll be part of tech design discussions or technical architecture design discussions to call out cross-functional gaps in the requirement. So then you can call out your what is your role that you foresee in this cross-functional team. Next is reporting. So reporting is another very key component because especially with testing, right, there are a lot of stakeholders who correlate the progress with the success of a product, right? So then, and again with quality, right, it's always under some sort of purview, right? Like how many defects I'm getting, is everything tested or not? There's some sort of confidence that is always dependent on people reporting the status of testing. So this component will help you define those reporting expectations very clearly. By first of all understanding who are the key stakeholders who are involved. Like you have maybe say a manager from a business side, or you also have, let's say, a CTO who's very interested in the progress of this product. Right? You have the fellow QAs and the team members who want to see the status. Right? So then you can't have a same report that you can share with all, right? Like a CTO might be interested in a different type of detail or a different level of detail than your fellow team members. Right? So once you understand the key stakeholders, you can understand what type of reports I might need to generate. Right? And then you can start that process early, like what is the framework or whatever is the process that you want to use to generate the reports. You can start that process early, set expectations with everyone in the team that this is what we'll be reporting and this is how we'll be fetching that information. And lastly, this component is also super critical because it also helps have some conversations which will prevent unnecessary trouble, right? Like there might be some people who might be expecting different things, like give me a traceability matrix where I can map every test case and every test step back to the original requirement, right? And that might not be the best thing, right, in your context, right? So having these conversations will help you understand what other people are expecting, and then can I provide the same information with much less effort, right? So that is where reporting comes in. And then lastly, raids. This is the risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. So during the process of defining this test strategy, you would have gone through multiple steps, right? You would have gone through the application under test where you have called out few assumptions. You have looked at the tools and technologies in your test automation approach, and you would need to do some spikes, or you would need some organizational support. If you are planning for a license tool, maybe you'll need you'll need to start that billing process also, right? So all of those, all of the raids during your process of defining test strategy now come here as part of this section, and where you put everything in a manner that is easy to understand. And especially if you're working for like large organizations, it is super critical that for them they start excuse me, it is super critical that they start this process very early, right? Because enterprises would have like a lot of interdepartment collaboration that is needed, right? This department will call to that department, and then they will give approval, all those things. So if you define your raids early, then you can get the support that you need. So quickly looking back, right, these are the different components that we talked about that we believe are essential to any good test strategy. That is understanding the application under test, the testing types that we want to do, the test automation approach that we plan to take, the path to production and how everything fits in together, the ways of working, setting expectations with the team, the reporting expectations, and then the rates. Right? So now the next section, right? Does the test strategy change?
Yeah. So typically, right, like when I Googled, right, I saw a few people mentioning that test strategy is static, right? It does not change. It is defined once and used forever, right? But is that true? Is that really true? So let's have a look at it, right? As we go ahead in a journey of a product, right? It keeps on growing, right? The product will keep growing, right? It will add features, it will trim down some features, right? That's one part, right? Features is one part. Another part is your what you can call it as underlying technology changes, right? With advent of new languages or new frameworks, we as a team, right, people feel that okay, to improve the product we need to change the underlying framework, we need to change underlying architecture and everything, right? So one of the things that we know for sure is like change is the only constant in a product's world, right? Every product changes, right? So once the product changes, do we really need to change a test strategy, right? We definitely believe that yes, the test strategy should change, right? So let's have a look at it as an example, right? So say in our case study, what happened is after a few months, what the client realized is mobile web is not being used by people a lot, right? So they said, okay, get rid of your mobile web. We don't really want to invest more in mobile web, right? We need to focus on Android application and iPhone application, right? So we were like, okay, good, great. Then our tech lead suggested, let's go with a microservices architecture, right? So they created different services, right, within the mobile space, right? Another thing is they wanted to add few more features, right? Like they wanted to add check-in and all that stuff, right? Now with this we had to definitely like look at our test strategy again, right? For example, once the common web views went away, we definitely need to really relook, right? So if for example earlier we chose Selenium as a mobile web automation tool, we really not need Selenium anymore, right? So we can focus all our energies on mobile application basically, right? So it gives us that leverage that okay, now we can focus maybe on APM, or say Perfecto or any other tool, right, that we can really use, right? With advent of this different microservices, it gives us advantage that we can have much better integration and contract tests, right? It adds to that thing, right? So now our test strategy will have that thing as well, right? But even when I'm talking about these different changes, right, one of the things that has not changed is our vision, right? Our vision is still to deliver that quality product, right? Our vision is to still have that seamless mobile experience, right? And all this whatever we are doing is aligning with that, right? So as Himanshu mentioned, right, like that whys are the pivots, right? And that's where like our test strategy was pivot, right? That okay, we want seamless experience and we want faster time to market as well, right? So our automation needs to be spot on, right? And that's where all these changes in the automation approach really come into play, right? So that's what we also did, right? So now when we look at the entire test strategy from this perspective, right? What we concluded or what we felt is test strategy keeps evolving, right? The way product evolves, your test strategy also keeps evolving, right? And that evolution can be anything, right? Addition of things, right? Or removal of things, right? So one of the key things, right, that happens is after a point in time, you relook at your test strategy, right? That's why it is called as frequently referred, right? You relook at it, you remove the things that were not really what you can call it as needed, right? Say for example, performance testing was not really needed, right? Like whatever we had was really up to the mark, right? We don't really need to measure or anything, right? With our experience, right? Maybe we want to get rid of that, right? Or for that matter, right, iPhone, right? It has got like pretty much standard sizes most of the times, right? Like two screen sizes, it doesn't have a lot. So I don't really need to invest in lot of different iPhone phones, right, to really test, right? So that is something that I will maybe trim, right? It keeps on improving, right? Like for example, right, when we started in this client account, we were using what we can call it as another open source tool, right, for automating web application, right? It was called as Calabash, right? But with time, right, Calabash was not really up to the mark, right? So we improved, right? We moved on to APM, right, which is much more better tool than Calabash that we have at this point in time, right? So we started incorporating that as a tool, right? And then we also started incorporating more like what you can call it as more tests around front ends within Android, right? With tools like Earl Grey or other tools, right? So that was really something that we kept on improving, right? So that's the part of evolving and improving test strategy, right? Then what do we understand from all of these examples that we spoke about, right? So first is, right, vision is really important, right? Like you should we would recommend, right, like you should not really jump into writing test strategy unless as a team we have a vision around how what our test strategy should be or what should our vision around quality, right? Because that really defines your vision and that helps you come up with a good test strategy, right? uh, every product is unique. In the similar way, every test strategy is unique, right? Like you can't really copy paste the test strategy from one product and reuse it completely as it is, right? There are definitely going to be changes, right? So and since it is unique, right, we really need to look at every component judiciously, right? We need to pick and choose components, right? We don't really want to invest a time on picking up things which are not really relevant, right? And again, one of the things, right, like refer other test strategies, right? Refer different components, refer things you have done in past. Don't just blindly copy paste it, right? That blind copy paste might land you into trouble. Yeah. Yeah, you want to add anything, Himanshu?
No, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I think we are done, right, Himanshu?
Yep. So fun time now. Questions, if you have any. Do you see any?
No, I don't see any. Yeah. Yeah, I think we spoke really well, Himanshu. Like people understood everything.
There is one question, Vikrant.
Yeah.
And is it feasible to include API testing, performance testing?
Okay. Yeah. So I think, right, if you are heavily reliant on API testing, right, I would definitely involve, right? Like I think from like last 6 or 7 years, most of my projects always had API testing, right? Uh, Performance testing, right? I think it's something which is very context driven, right? If your what you can call it as client really calls it out, right, that performance testing is imperative and you really need to do it, definitely involve it, right? But still, right, it's always a good idea to have certain baselines, right? For whatever you are developing with, you might not really need extensive performance testing, but there would be still a defined benchmark, right, which your APIs or which your front end should not miss, right? Like for example, loading page within 1 second, right? I think that's one of the classic examples. Yeah. Milestones, timelines. You want to talk about this, Himanshu?
Yeah, so this milestones and timelines, right? Most of the cases, it will be part of your release process itself. So when you talk about part to production, right, you'll talk about how the code flows in, how the code reaches testing environment, and then from under what conditions will you move it to UAT or forward or staging or a production environment. So unless you are working on a very on a project that is like sort of has a very long release cycles. There will not be exact dates. So in the current project, for example, we work at a weekly release cycle. Right? Some projects have daily release cycles. Right? So in that case, defining that part to production is like good enough of a representation of how the code will be deployed. Like necessarily timelines are not required, but if we ever need them for any context, right, then it will be part of your part to production, right? That's what we believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to add, right, I think if we agree on a test strategy, right, or a path to production, we always, right, incorporate that timelines, right, like how fast we can deploy it, how easy or how are we going to do deployments, right, and that will incorporate all the different things that we will have.
Okay, there's another one, Vikrant.
Yeah.
Is there any difference in creating test strategy for short-term and long-term projects? What about the timelines?
Yeah. So at least personally, I feel, right, your test strategy won't ideally change with short term and long term, right? Because your goals will still probably be the same, right? Like quality goals, right? And right, as I mentioned, right, every product evolves, right? A long term project will evolve after a period in time, right? And that can be 3 months, that can be 6 months, or that can be a month, right? It depends on what your product is, right? So you anyways need to keep your test strategy evolving, right? So when you are defining test strategy, you will define based on whatever you know at that point in time, right? And the moment it grows, the moment it changes, you will automatically incorporate those changes, right? That's what at least I have seen happening with the projects that I am on, right? Be it long term, be it short term, right? I think Himanshu is on a project which has been running for like long time, and yeah, they have revisited their strategy multiple times.
Just one thing I want to call out on all these questions, right? Like as someone mentioned, like Hina mentioned, I think in the chat right earlier, like it's very dynamic, and that is also one thing that we believe in. Like when we started to discuss around this topic, is this test strategy, right? It has been, the document itself is not so important. The important part is the different conversations that you'll have with the different stakeholders as part of coming up with that. It's that's the most important part. So the conversation that you have with your business stakeholders on their vision of quality or the vision of the product, the conversations you have with the development team or your tech leads, if you're not working in a cross-functional team, right? So then or with managers, right, on timelines, etc. So those are the really critical parts. So never, so that should always be understood, right? The document that comes out is just a condensed form of all the different conversations that you have had, understanding that you have. Right? So that is very key.
Yeah. And again, right, one of the points is when you have these conversations, right, you will definitely define, right, like what artifacts are going to be generated out of each component, right? And those will be used, right, either in reporting, either in what you can call it as further conversation, either when we want to change our test strategy, right? So those will be definitely defined. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I think if we don't have any further questions, we are done. Like we have shared our Twitter handles and email IDs. If you have any further questions, go ahead and drop us a note. Yeah, thank you.